The Californian Podcast is brought to you by the Southern California News Group and Bay Area News Group. Our teams have come together to create the best content focusing on the cannabis and CBD industries and culture. We have developed various channels where we distribute content and offer cannabis and CBD advertising solutions. If you or your business would like to advertise with the Californian, please contact us at info@thecalifornian.com.
Welcome back to the Californian Podcast. I'm Betty Blaze, and today I'll be your host. And I am joined by my producer, Danielle.
Hey, guys.
And we'll be having an all-girls cast today.
Ooh.
On this episode, we are going to be taking a deep dive into women-owned businesses and hear how it is working as a woman in the cannabis industry. Today's guest is Natasha, CEO and owner of Hey Bud Cannabis and Elevar X CBD. She is going to be sharing her journey as a woman in the cannabis industry, and she will be giving us some insight on her experience as an owner of two well-respected companies. Let's get into it. Today,
Perfect.
we are joined by Natasha. We are so excited to have an all-girls episode today. Natasha, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Pretty great.
We're doing good. I'm excited it's all girls.
Me too. I love talking cannabis and female health and, power, all that good stuff. Yeah.
Women empowerment.
We love it. That's what it's about. That's how we get more women in this space. Is we gotta talk about it.
Absolutely. So Natasha, you own the company Hey Bud and Elevar X CBD.
We own Hey Bud and Elevar X CBD, and hopefully Elevar X THC is coming soon as well. So that'll be fun.
And you own that company, right?
Yeah. So I have investors and partners and stuff behind the scenes, but I own both companies.
Oh.
So my brother does own Elevar X with me, but he doesn't do a lot right now. He's working on another thing, so I handle most of it. But he's my partner in Elevar X CBD, and then Hey Bud is me and my dad actually.
So awesome. Yeah. That's so badass that you own your own company, that you started it yourself.
Thank you.
How did you get started with cannabis?
So I used to own a restaurant, and my best friend Greg wanted to grow for the longest time, and we sat in my restaurant a year before cannabis got legalized, and we just said somehow, some way, we're going to find a way in the industry. And then we never talked about it again. And then cannabis was getting legalized in Canada, and I kept telling my dad, oh, we should look into this, I promise you it's going to be good, we should get in. And he thought I was crazy. And then we went to Canada, and everyone was talking about it. So then he looked into California and was like, okay, let's do it. So everything fell into place really easily for me, which is, I hate to say that. It wasn't easy, but it
was meant to be.
I don't know, everything. It was meant to be. Yeah, exactly. And so we actually had an application in for a dispensary in Santa Ana.
Oh.
And through weird turns of events, we ended up with a facility in Long Beach for cultivation.
Wow. You just wanted to be in it somehow. It didn't matter how.
It turned into someone else needed to be bought out, and the dispensaries were oversaturated already. So we're like, okay, let's pivot and move to something else. So we decided to go to the cultivation route and then build our way up to the dispensary versus dispensary and building our way down to the cultivation. So we ended up with a 9,000 square foot facility in Long Beach, and we built it out and started growing. The build out was about a year, so about 3 years ago, everything happened.
Wow, I'd say that's even more impressive. I mean, you're literally growing from the ground up, And
in 3 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, to have a dispensary is cool, but to be able to cultivate your own cannabis, that's something I'd really love to get into one day. So that's really, really neat.
Yeah, and that's why I hate saying it fell all into place weirdly, but it all ended up being better than what I planned originally. I took whatever changes, I just took it and said, okay, this is what's happening, and let's see where this goes, and it just kind of all worked out. So like I said,
That's
it
so
fell in my
great.
lap.
No, yeah, exactly. Like you
So
said, you had to be part of the cannabis industry somehow. And that's kind of how my journey's been. Necessarily start out wanting a podcast or Instagram. It just kind of all fell into the place where it was supposed to be.
exactly. So I like, it just happened. And then while we were doing this build out for Hey Bud, my brother at the time was selling these, they're like oxygen chambers.
Mhm.
And he was dealing with a lot of parents and autism. And so a lot of these parents were using CBD for their kids. And there wasn't a lot of CBD brands out there, and there wasn't a lot of regulations for CBD. So we had the opportunity to work with a really good friend who creates these it's called nano water soluble. And he's the chemist for it. And so we created a CBD line for these parents and these doctors that were like also getting into CBD and how that helps with autism in children and even just adults. So that's how the CBD thing started. So we started the CBD brand in the middle of my build out for the grow.
Oh, wow.
And so I had two things going on. And so that whole year we spent building Elevar X. We were dealing with doctors, we were dealing with parents, we were going to these autism conventions. So our CBD line is doctor recommended, and we are doing it. We started off like in the more of like a niche medical market versus like just a broad CBD. And anyone can get our CBD online, but we've focused our marketing and our efforts to help a lot of like the kids and the parents, because CBD is expensive for some reason, but it's not that expensive to make. So I kind of undercut some of my competitors and just wanted to give affordable CBD to all these parents, because they were using it every day and they were spending like $120 on like a 30 ml bottle. And it just made absolutely no sense, because they would go through those bottles like within a month. Some of them were going through 2 bottles a month. So it gets pretty pricey. So yeah, we started the CBD company, and then we were growing weed and selling it bulk. So Hey Bud was there, but we hadn't done any packaging or marketing for it until just this past March, because COVID kind of changed a lot of things for me.
Yeah, for a lot
Did
of
for all,
people.
yes.
For everyone, So yeah, so we had 2 companies going at the same time. So like I call Hey Bud my more like fun, like cannabis is used recreational and medically. And for Hey Bud, I don't advertise or like gear it to one specific thing. It's there for whoever wants to just smoke really good cannabis. And then our CBD line ended up gearing towards like more of that niche medical educational piece. And so it's like 2 different worlds combined. It's fun, but I get to learn a lot from both, and how things work with each other, and how like the more chemical compounds work with each other and stuff like that. So it's been an interesting couple years.
Oh,
for
I
sure.
bet. I mean, to take on both of those companies and to basically have Hey Bud as your fun side project, that is quite an extensive side project. That's incredible.
Yeah, and then also to like
Yeah.
point out too, like when you think about people starting CBD companies, it's more so like they're starting the company as an idea. Like I kind of just want to point out like the way that you kind of started it. Like
Yes.
you guys went to talk to families and talk to patients that this could actually help. Like I feel like that's also kind of going back to our last episode. Go listen to it. But kind of going back to like breaking that stigma, because this is something that's helping people's health. So it sounds like not only did you start this cannabis or this CBD and company to help people, but you also even like lowered the price to like kind of accommodate that. Like nobody really thinks about like, okay, this is also people's medicine.
Exactly.
Like let's try to give them a better deal.
Yep.
You kind of like thought out of the box, and I think that that's really cool. I think it makes your CBD company like stand out a bit.
Absolutely. I mean, even on Betty Blaze, I advocate for mental health, and to know a little bit more of their background behind Elevar X's CBD is definitely something I want to like, represent, because, that's an incredible story behind it.
Yeah, it was I'm trying to like think back to how it all happened. And I even told my dad, like when him and my brother brought this to like me, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this because like CBD, at that time, it was like one of those like snake oil type of things, like, oh, it doesn't work. And there's so many products out there that are CBD that don't work. Like
Very true.
I've tried CBD that doesn't work, and it's just that, you know, they put all this other stuff in it and there's not really that much CBD in it. And so when I went and talked to our chemist, and he had this water soluble product, it doesn't digest through your liver and stuff. It like goes through your bloodstream, so it hits you harder, it gives you the effects faster. So I tried the product out for like I think a couple months, and I was like, oh, okay, this actually works, like, let's do it. And so between me and my brother and then our chemist, we've created this line, and it was great. And then COVID happened, and our grow is going through some like growing pains, and so I put a pause on Elevar X. So we don't market it. We have our customers that still continue to buy from us, but I'm actually in the hopes of this year restarting the company properly, like rebranding, buying, you know, we're out of like some of our stuff. So I'm going to restock everything, remake a bunch of stuff, redo all the packaging, and start expanding on that brand now.
That's great. I mean, I guess going from there, what would you say Hey Buzz and Elevar X's CBD's overall goal for your company and your consumers are?
So Hey Bud is strictly to just provide good flower, like good quality flower to customers.
Amen.
I think our flower market kind of lacks that.
No, definitely.
There's not a lot of brands out there doing really good flower, and the ones that are, you know, they're killing the game. And then a lot of the brands are white labeled, so you know, you can have 3 or 4 brands that probably have the same, they probably bought from the same grower, you know, so you don't know what you're getting. There's a lot of like light depth and outdoor weed that are in these like fancy jars, and people are paying all this money for like okay weed. So my goal is just to put out good weed at a good price.
That's
and
great.
Just show people what real flower is.
Yeah. Something we had talked about
so.
And that I thought was incredible is that if you don't, if the batch that you grow is not up to your standards, you don't put it out, which I just really appreciate, that you're not in it for the money. You're in it for, you know, just giving people good weed, good cannabis to consume.
Yeah, no, we won't. So we had a drop on 4/20 was our last drop, and we haven't had a drop for about a month and a half now. So our next drop will be next week or this week if the podcast is live next week. So yeah, this weekend it should be in stores.
Cool.
But I just, you know, if it's not good enough for me to like be like, oh yeah, this is great, and I'm not going to package it. I'll bulk it because, you know, I don't care about that, but I won't package it under our brand. And it's just because I know it's really hard with the way that we don't have direct access to our consumers. We have to go through the distribution, and the distribution goes through the dispensaries, and then the bud tenders are our sellers, our salespeople. So we don't have access to these customers. And if you ruin your, like, if I get all this hype with Hey Bud and I put out one bad run, and like someone new comes to try Hey Bud, that's the first thing they get. It's like, they're never going to come back to me.
It tarnishes the name.
I don't want to, and I can't save anyone because I don't know these customers, like, you know, whereas if I had like my restaurant, I can usually save a lot of my customers if they had a bad experience, because they'll leave a Yelp review and I can access them directly. Whereas this, I have no access to anyone that might have a bad product batch or whatever. So I try to make sure our quality control is like on top of it, because I just want to make sure that no customer is disappointed with Hey Bud.
Yeah, definitely.
Or they feel like they wasted money.
You can't be going to every single weed review site out there and then commenting back to all the comments.
Yeah, that's like a big part of a company too, is the product, making sure the product that you put out is good quality, because you're always going to have those people who make their little comments or make their Yelp reviews, love Yelp reviews. And, you know, they love to like put their 2 cents, but it's like, you're not even giving anybody the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I just rather, you know, each batch that we put out is like the same quality, consistent. Like every time you go pick up Hey Bud, you know that it's going to be fire no matter what. And we're about to launch our 4-gram bags, and so those are going to be priced a little bit more. And I just don't want someone to purchase something for $60-$70 after taxes and, you know, be disappointed that they wasted that money, especially after the year we had with the pandemic and stuff. People don't have money to spend right now. So or waste right now. So
well, I also like the fact that you do 4 grams opposed to the 3.5. I feel like that sets you apart. It's a little more unique. And it's really another way you're saying, hey, I want to give you good quality cannabis for a good price.
Yeah, so we launched with 2 grams. Everyone usually does like a 1 gram or 3.5, and it happened actually pretty funny. I ordered these bags and they ended up being too small. So instead of wasting the bags, I was like, all right, let's see how much we can fit in there. I was going to do a 1 gram, and I was like, no, I don't like that. And then I was like, let's just do a 2 gram. A 2 gram bag, and then that way it sits right under a 3.5. Also, with the fact that we were just coming out of the pandemic, or we were still in a pandemic, and people were barely getting back to work, so it kind of was more affordable for people that might not be able to spend money on an eighth but didn't want to buy the 1 gram packs either. So we did it that way, and then I figured it was a nice way for people to start like testing us out, because we were dropping like 2 flavors during each drop. So it was just a way for people to try us out and like see what we're all about without spending a lot of money. And so now when we bring in our 4 gram bags, people already know what the quality is and the consistency is, so they don't have any hesitation spending the money for a 4 grammer. And it'll be right priced, probably in between or right around the same prices as like the top shelf 8. So nice. It kind of gives you a little bit more bang for your buck, I think.
No, yeah, I think that's cool. And that definitely does set you apart from other companies, because companies don't, one, think like that, and then also don't execute it like that. But I did want to point out one thing that, you know, we do our research, we look into all of the guests and their companies and whatever they're associated with. And, you know, this is a woman inspired episode. We wanted to have you on because you are a woman who owns a cannabis company and a CBD company. Or I guess we wanted to kind of just get like a little bit of a background as to why you don't really advertise that you're women owned on your social medias, and you actually had a really good answer to this. So I do want to like let the listeners kind of get to know why you do this.
I'm gonna hopefully remember what I told you guys.
I'll try. Yeah, we'll give him out.
I'm like trying to think, like, wait, what did I say? No, the reason I don't advertise it is just because my whole entire team is boys or men. I guess I'll call them men. I don't want to call them boys, but they're all guys. And, you know, even with like my dad being my business partner or my brother being my business partner, even though it is women owned and I'm the face of everything, I do have a whole team of guys. And for like, out of respect for them, like, I don't want people to think like, oh, you know, you're women owned, but the guys that are mostly growing your stuff or like in the grow and all that stuff, it's all guys. There's no girls working for you. And it's not that I don't want to hire girls. It's just, this is how it happened. But also just, I don't want to, we launched during Women's Month and we did all the interviews and the podcast with a bunch of like different people that were highlighting women that month. And a lot of the dispensaries highlighted women-owned brands, and we were part of that whole thing. But I like the fact of people just finding out on their own. I don't want that to be the selling point. I want the weed to speak for itself. So I'd rather have people go buy the weed and like the weed because it's good weed, and it's not because it's women-owned or they want to support me because it's women-owned. You know, I just want it just to be. I just want it to get in on its own merits, I guess. But, you know, a few stores did bring me in because it was women owned and it was during Women's Month. But I am also the type of person that I like to be at the same level as all the boys. So I don't want it to be the reason why I got in because I was a women owned business, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I just keep liking you more and more. Like,
no, yeah, you want the product to speak for itself.
Yeah, and I just want it to be equal. Like, I love being a women-owned business, and I love sharing my story so that other women can maybe be inspired to actually go and do this, and like not feel like scared to do it. But I don't want to just be in this women-owned category. I want to just be part of the whole entire category of just good weed.
I guess I never thought about that either. Like, I mean, I guess when this whole woman-owned business like pop or blow up started happening, I feel like people kind of were like, okay, like this is gonna be a good chance for us to get into places and kind of like make our name, which I'm sure it did help you like when launching during Women's Month. But you're also like not like, one, I'm sure a lot of other guys work at these women-owned companies and they're kind of just not saying it. You're, one, being honest about it, like respecting them, but two, like,
yes.
yeah. And then you're also just like I love your mentality. Like, I want to be one of the boys. Like, not that you want to be one of the boys, but you just want to compete. Like, you want to have the same competition and you want to like, it's like you're competing in the same industry. I don't know how to say it, but you know, do you guys kind of get what I'm saying?
I'm picking up what you're laying down.
No, it's like one of those things where I don't like, I'm a girl's guy or guy's girl, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of guy friends. And so I'm so used to being around the guys and like, you know, and like Hey Bud is such a masculine name. So I think that also throws people off because they're like, oh, it's just like another cannabis company. And then when they find out it's women owned, they're like, even like, oh, okay, wait, what?
Added
so it like
bonus.
confuses people. But I just, I don't want to ever get into, I don't want the reason my success is only because I'm a woman. Like, I want it to be because I'm growing good weed and we're putting good products out in the market and people actually like our products for what it is and not for it being a women-owned business.
Exactly. And that's the way it should be. I know when we were talking earlier, you said you launched during Women's Month and you were saying that being a women-owned company, it did kind of get you into some doors. Would you say that you've benefited in that way through marketing, being a women-owned company?
Yeah, I didn't realize, like, when we had our harvest and I was like, oh, this is the harvest that we're going to launch with, I didn't realize it was going to land on Women's Month until my friend Ishka, she's part of the Cannaboss Babes, she noticed it and she called me and she's like, hey, you're launching on this day. I want to do an interview for Women's Month. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, why not?
And it just kind of, and then it snowballed from there because I was like, well, this is a good opportunity to get our name out because we're launching on this day.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And so I did an Instagram live with her on her Instagram that morning, and all the stores were putting us out that night. So it was a very fun morning, and I just kind of was like, all right, let me go for it. And I even told her on her interview too about, like, you know, I have a team of guys and this and that. And so it was cool. And then from there, other dispensaries and all of them that were already carrying us wanted to do interviews for Women's Month and like showcase Hey Bud and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's like, go for it. You know, in my mind, it was a great marketing opportunity. It just happened at the same month. So that's kind of how it happened. And then it became this thing because more and more people found out we were women owned and more people were doing women owned things that they wanted to showcase Hey Bud as well. So it worked out in a good way. I didn't force anything, and that's what I like.
That's kind of a trend with you.
Yeah, it just all comes naturally. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even with this podcast, I got a call from my friend, and she's like, "Oh, my friend wants to do an interview with you," and I was like, "Okay, cool,
that's so cool.
Do it."
Yeah, no, it's just all working out the way it's supposed to be. It's the universe, I'm telling you.
Exactly. So I don't like to force things, you know. And even with the stores, I think I got one of the stores. So King's Crew is owned by a woman, and we had gone to go meet the buyer, Lacey, and she was and when I went with the sales guy that I was with, and we told her it was women owned, she was like very intrigued. And then it was like, and they're all girls over there that work there. They're all awesome.
Nice.
We love King's Crew. And so they were like so excited. And then once the store started finding out that I was women owned, the bud tenders were like even more excited. And then they kept pushing the product even more because they were just happy and they loved the product. They loved what I was doing with it. And it kind of just went that way. But we also had a good product. So it worked out in a natural way versus like only being in their store because we were women owned and they felt like they needed more women-owned brands.
A very organic way. So we do want
Yeah.
the inside scoop though. Like, how does it feel to be a woman in the cannabis industry? Is it any different?
Yeah, I feel like it's like,
It
I
has
know
to be
it's
a
a
little bit,
competitive
right?
industry,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
how is it being like a woman owner, CEO, like
It's pretty,
in the industry
like I said,
where,
it's badass.
yeah, in an industry that's mostly men?
So I came from having an Indian restaurant, and so being Indian and being in like our culture too, it's like very masculine. Like when I owned my restaurant, I remember the first time we had a customer issue, the guy was like, "Oh, let me talk to your like manager," and I was like, "I am the manager." And he's like, "Oh, well, let me talk to your owner," and I was like, "I'm the owner."
Yes.
He's like, "Let me talk to your dad," and I'm like, "My dad doesn't own this. Like, this was mine." I mean, it was like, you know, most Indian restaurants are like family owned or whatever, so I understand what he was saying. And so I had to deal with a lot of that already in owning an Indian restaurant, and so I was used to it. But cannabis was a little bit different when we came in, because I ended up having to do a lot of like the selling part of like the bulk sales, and I took over all of that part of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's primarily men, right, in that field department?
It's all guys.
Yeah.
I think I went at least 2.5 years before I actually started meeting any girls in the industry.
Wow.
Every buyer, every person that I dealt with was all guys, and even to this day, I think every buyer that I still deal with is guys. I'm trying to think if I've had to deal with any girl buyers or distros. The distro I do work with right now, there's a woman that I deal with, and she's great. And then there's another distro in Long Beach that I had met, and it was like it was another woman-owned business, which was awesome.
Yes.
But it wasn't until like maybe like 3 or 4 months ago I started meeting more women-owned businesses in cannabis. So up until the last like 2.5 years, it was all men. It's still all men. And it was hard at first because a lot of them either didn't take me seriously or they didn't realize I was the owner. And so in the beginning, they would come in, look at product, haggle me on pricing. They wouldn't want to give me what I wanted. And I was really intimidated back then too, like, cause it was new and I wasn't sure like what I was doing.
New career field.
And then when I like finally, the one buyer that I was dealing with a lot, I think it took him maybe like 2 or 3 times of like buying stuff from us. We were sitting and I was counting money and he's like, "What do you do here?" And I was like, "Oh, I own it." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you were a salesperson this whole time." And I was like, "No, I'm the owner." And he's like, it kind of clicked to him. And then after that, his whole entire attitude in our relationship changed.
Yep.
Like he was very like straightforward, would come in, you know, we would go back and forth on pricing, decide on something, he'd take it, and then that was it. We'd count the money, do our thing. After that, he would talk to me more like, "Oh, you know, I'm having this issue at work. How do you deal with this?" Or like, we started talking more about business every time he visited. So it was, it changes their tone sometimes. But I think as I got better at what I was doing, I started getting more confident. And so then able to change the way I talk to them and like made it known that like this is my business and this is what I want, and if you don't want to like work with me, then we're good. So it took me a while to get there, but it was intimidating at first. And there's still times even today, like not today, but like up this week, that I've had guys try to be very passive aggressive in certain things. There's a little bit of drama happening in the last couple weeks in Long Beach, and you know, one of the guys tried to say something in a meeting, and I kind of went off on him in the private chat, and he was so caught off guard. He was like, "Oh shit," and like tried to say it wasn't about me and this and that, and I was just like, "Yeah, whatever. You just work for a company. I own an actual license, so let's not try to let's just, you know, he's just a problem in this industry. He's like a guy, and there's guys like that. You know, my old distro that I was working with, they were all men, and they kept trying to tell me what to do and how to launch my brand, and I said, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm doing it this way." And they had so many doubts. They're like, oh, it's not going to work. You need to be lower. No one's going to carry you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, nope, this is the price I want. These are the stores I want. I'm going to do it. And I did it. And so, after that, they were like, oh, okay, you know what you're doing.
Sometimes you got to show them to make them believe.
Yeah, it took, like I said, in the beginning, it was hard because I wasn't confident enough because I didn't know the industry as much as I do now. Mm-hmm. And even then I'm still learning. But when I got that confidence and realized like, oh, these guys don't know what they're doing. let me just go with my gut. It changed a lot of things. And it gave me a lot of respect. And there's a lot of men in this industry that do support me, that are there for me, that are like I've made friends with, and I absolutely am grateful for all of them. They have been great. But then there's also, you're always going to have those ones that are like intimidated by a woman, mm-hmm. or like, that's just the way they are, and they're never going to change. So I kind of just let them be, and I can kind of spot them out. So I just kind of stay clear from those people.
You've learned to identify by now.
Identify and push to the side.
Yeah,
exactly.
So would you say that like dealing with like these males who are kind of just like didn't really know that you were the owner, didn't know that you had a bigger role than you did, like do you feel like those males kind of like shaped you to be more confident and more kind of like, excuse the term, like boss bitch, like?
Yeah, I think so, because I think in the beginning I was just trying to like figure things out, mm-hmm. and the thing is we had like consultants that we were dealing with at the same time, and those were also guys that towards the end, well, like after, like, they're bad consultants. And so when they left, they would make comments behind my back to my partner or whatever, and say like, you could just tell they didn't want me to be successful, and they never thought I was going to be successful. So that also was the reason why I was so like not as confident during those times. But after they left and I realized like I'm going to make this work no matter what, and I started being more confident, and that also helped too. So I think when the guys were less intimidating after they realized like I'm at the same level as them, I think. Mm-hmm. When they like, because they change too. They change, like if they think you're just a salesperson, they're going to haggle you like a salesperson because they're just trying to get the best deal. But when they realize like you're the one making the decisions, and they're like, oh, I should be nicer to you.
Exactly.
Oh, you're the boss. Okay, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, would you say from that, and you said you have to do anything you can to do really succeed in this industry as a woman, how have you had to adjust to the difficulties? Like, this is broad. I know you said you've had to be a little bit more confident. It's boosted your confidence there.
Yeah, like any major difficulties where like you kind of had to turn it on.
Or like
maybe not any like major difficulties where I had to turn it on. I think it was just me gaining my confidence and realizing like I can be a part of this industry. I think allowing all of these other people to tell me like how to do things, what they expected, how it should be, because we were at that time, like in the first year and a half, we were taking direction from different people and that had X amount of years in this industry, right? Mm-hmm. And then I realized like none of these people know what they're doing either. The thing I learned is just because it worked for somebody doesn't mean it works for you. There's 1,010 ways of growing, and so we've learned a few ways, and there's still a lot more ways to learn, and we're still learning. And I think following my gut has been one of the biggest things that I've had to like realize, like, and find that confidence again. I don't know if anything actually like changed in that or where it changed. Mm-hmm. I think I'm like trying to think, but I don't know when it all happened. I just know that like I just happened gradually. I think like I just started getting more and more used to what I was doing and realizing like, oh, if I tell these guys that I'm the owner, then maybe they'll give me more respect. And then I started getting involved more with the community. So I'm with the LBCA, which is a nonprofit in Long Beach, and it's a bunch of the cannabis business operators and cannabis people, and we have meetings, we do events, we're dealing with social equity. So I'm involved in a lot with them, and I think that also helped my confidence come out because I deal with a lot of the guys and business owners. I'm at the same, I feel like a little bit, they give me that confidence because I'm at the same, I own a business just like them and I see
Yeah.
what they're doing. And then I try to,
It
I let
fuels
them
you.
be my guides, I guess.
No,
Yeah, I'm trying to
exactly.
say, yeah, I don't hope that makes sense. I don't know.
No,
Right.
definitely. And like
I
you
just,
said, follow your heart, trust your intuitions, because obviously all the signs are pointing you in the right direction so far. But anyways,
yeah, exactly.
let's go back to the business side of Hey Bud and Elevar X CBD. What are some struggles with starting your own cannabis company in general?
I think the biggest struggle is you can't advertise like you can with any other business. And that, like, cannabis is, you got to be creative. I can, I can market anything if I have Instagram and social platforms and stuff. 2 weeks ago, our Instagram got deleted. So
Betty
it
knows
was,
about
Yeah,
that.
been there.
it was really sad, and then it got back. So that was cool.
That's
I was thankful for
good.
that. But I had to build a backup account. I lost like all my followers. I was like, crap. So I think like the biggest thing about building a cannabis brand is marketing for anybody, because you have to, we're just not allowed to market, like, and we have to be creative on how we're marketing and what we're doing. And even with CBD, it's the hardest thing about the CBD thing was every other company, there's so much CBD out there, and all the CBD that's being sold in the gas stations and this and that. And it's like, how do you show people that without like being able to really market, how do you show people that your CBD actually works versus the stuff that you buy at a gas station? So that was kind of like that thing. And then COVID happened. So, I mean, we were supposed to launch Hey Bud last year, and it kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And then finally I was like, okay, we got to do it now, or we're never going to do it. So those are like a couple of the hurdles that we had to do. Growing is difficult. In a commercial setting, you're basically taking all of these environments and trying to grow a plant, and things happen, So we've lost rooms, we've had issues, we've had bug problems, we've had everything that you could have in the last 3 years. So we've lost product, or we've had to, figure out something else for it or whatever. And so those are some hard things that we had to go through, and that also hinders you from having a drop. So like I said before, if our quality is not up to standard, I'm not going to have a drop. And then sometimes I feel like the hype goes away or people get annoyed. But so far, everyone's been really understanding about the fact that there hasn't been a drop. So people are still excited and ready for when we drop this week.
Yeah, I have no problem waiting for good
I
quality.
don't think people who smoke weed really. I think they're kind of chill about it. I would imagine, right? I'd be pretty chill about it. I like that you brought up growing though, because I think like when people think like, oh, okay, women owned, like this woman owns like this cannabis brand, like I don't think they really understand what goes into building a cannabis brand. Like you're growing, you're trimming, you're inspecting the product. Like there's so many things that you're doing for your brands. Like, can you kind of just give us like a little bit of a background of kind of like, yeah, what goes into creating your own cannabis brand and what you kind of have to do?
So for us, because we grow in-house, we can plant something today and it won't be ready for months. And we don't know how it's going to turn out. It could be the same. It could be inconsistent. Something can go wrong. Our mom wasn't healthy. So there's just so many variables. And so it's hard too, because this industry, like, I feel like the hype part of it, like the strains and all that stuff keep changing. Everyone's really obsessed with like really purple strains right now. And so I could grow 2 rooms with all purple strains, and by the time it comes down, someone could be like, no, we're done with the purple, and like I have now all this purple strains sitting here. Other things that are like, we have like guys that handle our veg, so they're constantly taking care of our moms and the babies and the clones, and we have to plan out like 6 months in advance of like what we're going to do. And so a lot of planning goes into the whole growing side of it, not even the branding part. That's a whole other section. Right. And then we have, then it's plant maintenance while it's in flower. So every week is a different stage, and we're feeding it different nutrients, and you're watching these plants grow. We're making sure everything's going right, and then you harvest, we trim, and then we cure for 15 days. So even after that, it's not even like, we're not even close to dropping anything to you guys, because we have to cure for 15 days, and then it's another week in packaging and testing, and then it gets into stores. So it's like over like a 3-month process before it even hits stores.
Sounds like
and
a high
I think
pressure
people don't
job.
realize that.
Yeah, no kidding. It sounds like a high pressure job. Like, I
Yeah.
can only imagine how
So-
much stress.
I can only
would get
imagine how
overwhelmed.
much of the product you smoke.
I know, honestly.
See, the thing is, we can't even do that because it's all metric tags, so we can't even take product.
Product
Everything
testing
has to go through the system.
Yeah.
So it's really,
by the
and then on top of that, we have to deal with compliance. So we're
Mhm.
making sure all of our
Mhm.
books and tags, everything's tagged, and we're a team of 8, and we do a lot. Everyone kind of wears multiple hats in our grow facility.
Mhm.
We don't have like specific, like everybody, it's just a team effort, and my team's great. Like, I love every single one of them. They have really, like, even in the last like 6 months since we've launched our brand, everyone stepped up. So it's been awesome to see like that happen too, because like we all started together. A lot of them have been with me since day one. A couple of them in the last like 6 months, 7 months, and we've just really grown as a team. So that was cool. And then just also like us seeing our brand in shelves now, it's like exciting because like we grew it. Whereas like I feel like the brands that might be white labeling and just putting brands out there don't feel as attached to the brand as we are. So
Right.
if anyone's smoking Hey Bud, just know we are very, very attached to our brand and our flower.
No, and you can definitely tell that, and besides all of the heart and soul that is obviously put into your company, what do you feel that you do that for your brand that stands out from your other competitors? Because you said there's a lot of hype going on, people want certain things, certain strains, certain colors, trichomes, terpenes.
I want to, right now, as being a new brand, I had to like feed into the hype. So we launched with Donkey Butter and Cushman's, and they were very purple strains. They were high testing, so it kind of worked. And we grew them wonderfully and beautifully. So it just, we were able to feed into the hype. What I do want to do is like get into like later down the road, is when we do have time, to get into more of that educational piece of telling people like it's not about the purple strains, it's not about the THCs, it's about that terpene profile and
Mhm.
how those terpenes make you feel. And like there's so much more to cannabis than what people think there is. And I just want, like, that's like our main goal too, is like, just because this is a 22%er doesn't, it's still going to get you high, just like that 31%er, and that 31%er might not get you as high because there's all these like other things that go into it. And
Mhm.
I think that's like the big missing part in our industry, is like that educational piece, because I think a lot of people just don't understand. And so it's hard, because by the time you go, you want to be able to sell to your dispensaries, and they don't want to buy product that's going to sit on the shelf, and if it's not high testing, and if it's not moving, they're not going to keep purchasing from you,
Right.
because then they're losing money. And so it's hard, but that's also hard because you have these consumers who don't understand that it's not about the high THC or the purple strains. It's about how does that terpene profile make you feel. So I do want to do things in the future with the terpenes and all that stuff, but right now, because there's so many moving parts, I'm just trying to get the brand out there, and then slowly work our way into getting that kind of stuff, or like building that kind of stuff into it.
Right. No, yeah, that makes sense, because I think, kind of just to, not to make it about me or anything, but I, like, when I first got into cannabis, it was more so like a recreational thing. And then honestly, starting this podcast and working with the Californian, it's really kind of given me a different look on the industry. Like, it's not just something that I do to, kind of get high. It's more so of a community where it really is a community There's people here that are using this not just for recreational purposes, for medical purposes. Like, it's so much bigger of an industry than people think. Like, it's not just you're getting high. There's so much more to it.
I love that word, community. I feel
Yeah.
like community I will replace instead of industry.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a community. I think for sure it's a community. Everyone kind of like knows everyone in a way, and it's a very big industry technically, but it's a
Mhm.
very small community. And everyone kind of knows everyone, and like that's why I like the name Hey Bud, because we call like the way that the name came was like we say Bud a lot, like hey Bud, what's
Mhm.
up? How are you doing, Bud? And that was just the way that we talked, or like me and my friends, and so it just kind of made sense, like, oh, hey Bud. And so my whole entire goal was, you walk into a store, you see all of these different names, everything's the same, Canna this, Canna that, I don't know, everything sounds the same at this point, everything looks the same, and I was like, how can I be different? And I didn't want cannabis anywhere on my stuff. My Instagram has it because Hey Bud was taken, but
Mhm.
I didn't want the name cannabis anywhere, like on our packaging or anything like
Right.
that. And so I wanted people to like go into a dispensary and it just like see that word Hey Bud on there, and it's like calling to you, and you're like drawn to it. So that was like my vision in my head, like, oh, what is that? Like, let me see. And then, and then you open it up and it's like really good flower. So that's kind of how Hey Bud started.
I love it, the little
But
double entendre.
and like that's how I wanted to stand out. I try to build our Instagram where you get to see a lot of behind the scenes, which I think a lot of brands don't do. And I wanted to show like everything that I can show. So I make reels, and we do like harvest days, and I use my stories a lot, and I just kind of show our everyday what we're doing every day at the grow. So it makes people feel like they're part of it. They kind of get to see an inside scoop. And I just wanted to build like a family for Hey Bud. Like you're part of the Hey Bud family. So that's kind of how I built that brand and how I wanted that brand to stand out.
No, yeah, that makes sense to me completely. And I kind of wanted to go back to this, like, because you're creating this Hey Bud family, you're creating this community. I know that we talked a little bit about how you yourself kind of push yourself to be involved in the women-owned cannabis community. I know you're part of like a group. What is it? The Canna Boss Babes.
Yeah, on Instagram.
Yeah. And so I kind of want to just know, like, you are a woman in the industry. Like, it seems like you own it. If it comes out, it comes out. You're happy to, let people know that it is, even though you don't market it. But it seems like you do things in the cannabis industry with women to kind of advocate for cannabis. Can you kind of just talk about a little bit how you as a woman are advocating for cannabis?
So I'm not part of the Canna Boss Babes. They're another group that advocate for women. And so they're awesome. They do a lot in that women's space. But I think my biggest thing is just showing the success that I have, and then telling people that story. Like, hey, if I can do this, you can do this. So getting on podcasts with you guys, getting on IG Lives, whatever I can do to show people like, oh, okay, if she's doing it, then I can. Because I think the statistics are like there's only like 8% actually women-owned cannabis licenses out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so being that one, part of that 8% is awesome. But there needs to be more. And I think a lot of the other women out there that do own those cannabis licenses, I don't really see a lot of them. I'm like trying to think if I like can even like picture if they're doing anything or if I see them doing anything, but I can't. So I just think of like, as long as I can tell my story and show people like, oh, if she's doing it, like maybe it'll inspire someone to be like, okay, I can do it.
Yeah,
and
no.
So
you inspired me.
Thanks. So yeah, like that's just kind of, and then I can't take compliments either. Then I get all like shy.
No, you really
like,
did though. I mean, I don't know where my cannabis journey is gonna go, but just to see you out there doing it and doing it well, like so freaking well, is really encouraging for me.
I don't like public speaking. I hate these type of interviews. I hate that. I like cannot stand any of it, but I do it because I know that it's going to benefit someone or inspire someone. So I get nervous. Like I get really like, I get all like, you know, freaked out, and I'm like have to prepare myself mentally for like an hour before I log in or get on with you guys. But if I can spread the story and people can see that I'm doing it, then hopefully it makes them be like, okay, I could do it too. So that's kind of the way I advocate, but I also do whatever I can to help. There's, you know, I always love to support my Cannaboss Babe girls. They do interviews on their Instagram all the time. So there are definitely some people you guys want to check out too.
No, definitely. If you want to give any shout outs right now, throw them out. You know, we want to help support
the Cannaboss Babes. The LBCA is doing great work. We are helping the city redo the social equity program right now. So that's awesome. You know, we're going to go and give them our recommendations, and hopefully the city takes it, because we do want to see the social equity program succeed in Long Beach. You know, I got to give a shout out to all the guys that are probably working their butt off right now. It's already 11. So
Yes,
they're,
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Throw out your Instagram handle as well.
Oh, so our Instagram handle is Hey Bud Cannabis.
Hey Bud.
Our Instagram handle for L of our X is just L of our X CBD, I think. Let me just double check. I haven't been on it in a while because we've kind of paused it. Yeah, so it's just L of our X. And then my Instagram handle is, I see, I'm so bad at this. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It's Natasha with 2 S's and 2 A's at the end, 34. So you can probably find it through Hey Bud. But yeah, so you guys everyone can follow me on Instagram, and
definitely
you can stay connected. But definitely follow Hey Bud, because you get to see all the behind the scenes.
Exactly. I want to stay up to date when that drop hits.
I know. I'm trying to get on that drop.
Yeah. So the stores that we're in, because I got to shout out my stores because they're awesome. Absolutely. And all the bud tenders at each of these stores are great. But we've got Golden State Greens in San Diego. We've got Tropicana in Santa Ana. And then our 4 Long Beach stores are the Circle, King's Crew, Long Beach Green Room, and the Chronic. And then our 1 LA store is Pack LA. So they've been awesome. We love all of these stores, and
go check out Hey Bud. Again, thank you, Natasha, for joining us on our all-female episode and giving us a behind the scenes of your company.
Yeah, we really appreciate
you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, of course. I've been really looking forward to this episode. So you've given us a lot of good info, and like I said, inspired me to keep on going in this cannabis journey.
Yes, I'm excited to see both of your guys' cannabis journey. I'm excited to see you guys succeed. It's awesome. I love it.
We're just all like, helping and supporting each other. I love that.
Girl power.
Girl power.
Girl power. I guess it's a good thing Kevin wasn't here today.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Kev.
Just kidding. Well, we missed him. It's fine.
He'll be missed. We'll have to do another one when we have the whole group and kind of just talk about some other stuff, because we loved having you on.
Exactly. And it sounds like you just like talking cannabis in general.
I love it. We can talk about, when I relaunch L of our X properly and we do our whole THC line, we can get on the call for that.
Definitely.
Yes, there you go. Well, thank you so much, Natasha.
Yes.
It was amazing speaking to you.
Enjoy your day.
And
get back to your boys, men, I mean. Yes.
Round up all those boys and make sure they're preparing for the drop.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me.
No
I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode, and a special thank you to Natasha for giving us her time. And not only that, but giving us a really cool opportunity to jump into the head of a female entrepreneur in the cannabis industry. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and be sure to follow us on our social media pages at The Californian, and listen to us on your favorite podcast platform.
The Californian Podcast is brought to you by the Southern California News Group and Bay Area News Group. Our teams have come together to create the best content focusing on the cannabis and CBD industries and culture. We have developed various channels where we distribute content and offer cannabis and CBD advertising solutions. If you or your business would like to advertise with The Californian, please contact us at info@thecalifornian.com. The views expressed by guests on this podcast are their own, and no endorsement is implied by their appearance. Views expressed by podcast employees are those of the employee and do not necessarily reflect the view of The Californian, its parent company, or its affiliates.